Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad, or maybe good afternoon or good morning, depending where you're joining us from. You're looking at a live view of the I'm going to say it wrong right off the bat, I apologize. Tanegashima Space Center in Japan. You're looking at launch site LAY1 in Japan, where we are counting down now just under 41 minutes and counting till the first launch for Japan. Today's vehicle is the H-iIA rocket carrying the IGS-Optical 8 payload, and we're going to dive into everything we know about today's mission, which isn't a lot, but we will be diving into it and answering all of your guys' comments and questions. But as always, as we get started, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We're going to do some shout outs here, but also take a moment and engage that like button. It really does help us out, helps that algorithm, and invites more people to be able to join us. We got Stratoblaster watching in Pennsylvania. We got Aaron in Idaho in the US. Great to have you here. We've got, let's see, lots of people sending in. We got Denise in California, Panama, maybe in Atlanta. Great to have you here. We've got Anoxia in Florida, Williams in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We got John in Utah, Remy's in South Louisiana, Christine, is in Iowa, Jordan's in Oklahoma, and we got Daniel in Germany. We'll give some more shout-outs here in just a moment, but if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad Network, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we bring you full live launch coverage, space news updates, exclusive one-on-one interviews, and more through our 2 channels and our Discord. So if you haven't yet, make sure you've subscribed to both of those, as well as join us over on the TLP Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between launches. I'm hanging out in live comms if you want to join us. That's where our community kind of has watch parties during launches. And we got Adzi and Thunder hanging out with me, and we'd love to see you over there. When I'm not on air here, I pop over on there and say hello during live streams as well. So we'd love to see you there. A great place to be part of a community, because as we say, space is better together. If you're just joining us, though, we're at T-minus 39 minutes and counting, and you're looking at a live view as propellant loading is underway. We've had confirmation and updates throughout today from MHI Launch Services as they continue through it. 20 minutes ago, they said that we were at the 60-minute mark and that final launch countdown had begun. They said weather currently is good, and they have been given the green light to enter that terminal 60-minute countdown. The second altitude and first altitude control systems have been tested, and that has been completed. And the first and second stage liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen tanks were fully loaded 4 hours ago. So they are continuing through. This is about a 12-hour countdown since they rolled it out to the actual pad. As they work on continuing towards today's launch. Now, as I said, we don't know a lot about today's mission, so if you guys have questions, send those in the chat. Tag me at the launch pad, and I'll work on answering those comments and questions to the best of my ability. But as we don't know much, and why? Well, today is like an NRO mission in the United States. Today's payload is IGS-Optical 8. It's an intelligence gathering satellite, IGS, and it's for the Japanese Cabinet Satellite Information Center. This satellite is an orbital optical reconnaissance satellites that will serve both Japan's national defense and civil natural disaster monitoring systems. And as I said, it'll be operated by the Cabinet Satellite Information Center. So because of that, like a U.S. launch, we don't know a whole lot, but you can't really hide a rocket launching, so that's why we know this rocket is actually launching here today. This is, of course, the first launch for Japan of 2024, the first H-iIA launch that we have seen also this year. This is the 48th launch of the H-iIA launch vehicle, and we're excited to see that. And can you believe it? We are on January 11th, where our TLP studio is, January 12th over in Japan, and this is the 10th orbital launch of 2024 already. That is incredible, as not only SpaceX goes to set new records, but other launch companies as well. And as we push, last year for the first time ever, we had to have a 200 number assigned to the orbital launches of the year. And this year, let's see, will we hit that 3? We'll have to wait and see what happens. If you're just joining us, thanks so much for being here. Christine, thank you for the lander updates in this stream. You do great work, and it's appreciated. I appreciate that. We will get that mission tracker back up for Peregrine here around this stream. There is a lot of updates coming in from Astrobotics. If you've been following along, we'll quickly touch on it here. But the Peregrine lunar lander that was launched on the historic first Vulcan flight unfortunately did suffer a pretty major critical anomaly in its propulsion system, and has no longer the ability to land on the moon after losing most of its propellant. Now, what's interesting is, at the first updates, they believe they only had about 8 to 12 hours of propellant left. Well, here we are, 2.5 days later, and the most recent update we heard today is that they have another 48 hours remaining of propellant. Every day we're getting an update, and every day we're hearing not only are they extending the time, they're almost resetting and adding more time. Yesterday it was 36 hours from yesterday afternoon. This afternoon it's now 48 hours from today afternoon. So the longer they're able to last and use the lander, they will. They have activated almost all, if not all, the payloads on board, including NASA's IRIS rover. It even sent messages home. Ultimately, JPL has done some calculations that Peregrine might actually land on the surface of the moon, just not propulsively, which means it would not be a soft landing, and ultimately everything would be lost. But there may be the ability that that happens just based on its current trajectory, but we won't know that until Peregrine gets to lunar distance, comes back to Earth, comes around the Earth, and heads back out where it was actually going to rendezvous with the moon, and we'll have to see. Astrobotic has been saying that with the propellant leak, they've actually been losing less and less, and they believe that's due to the pressure differentials, that's why they're using less and less, which is a great sign, because the longer they can keep aimed at the sun, the longer they can keep their batteries charged, the longer they can keep all of their payloads turned on, sending data back. So not a mission success per se, no soft landing on the moon, but definitely I would say a successful failure where they're trying to do as much as they can while they're still journeying, and they're proving that they could have got out to the moon. They're just not going to be able to have a landing attempt. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of Japan, where they are preparing to launch a national, their version of a national reconnaissance mission. It's a Japanese optical reconnaissance satellite to serve Japan's national defense and civil natural disaster monitoring. We're glad to have you joining us here. Great to have you here, catching up on the chat. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. I saw a couple people asking, is this a reusable vehicle? No, this is not. It will be splashing down into the Pacific Ocean during its launch sequence. A couple people also saying new intro. Glenn saying love the new intro. Appreciate that. Definitely stay tuned. That's going to be evolving as our team gets even better footage, and that's only because of your guys' generous support. We got some stuff from Vulcan to add into that video, and we'll have a few other missions coming up with Axiom 3 preparing to launch in just about a week's time, and a bunch more of exciting things happening in 2024. Brian, things are going great. A lot of changes happening and getting closer for me to go for NASA. That's awesome, Brian. Wish you well with that. Definitely always exciting to see it. We are at T-minus 33 minutes, 5 seconds, and counting till liftoff. Catching up a little bit on today's vehicle. It's a little bit hard to see on the view that we have, but on the bottom of the vehicle you can see there's kind of a white section. Those are SRB strap-ons that are part of the H-iIA vehicle, so there are 2 of those. Those are solid rocket boosters. On the center core of the vehicle, that yellow part, that is the main stage of it, but there is also that second stage, which you can see on the top, that black and yellow portion. That's the second stage of the vehicle, and then of course the fairing. The fairing diameter of an H-iIA rocket is 4.07 meters, and it's 12 meters tall. The entire vehicle on your screen is standing 53 meters tall, and it can carry up to 10,000 kilograms to orbit, to low Earth orbit. So we don't know what today's payload's weight is, but we do know a maximum. Today's mission, on average, a cost of an H-iIA vehicle cost about $90 million. And I believe that's US dollars for the launch services. So we're keeping a close eye for any updates coming in from the MHI launch services. The last one we had was 16 minutes ago, saying weather conditions continue to be nominal for today's flight. Catching up on the chat here, NJ Vinny, Apollo made it to the moon in 3 days. Why does it take us 5 weeks now? That's a really big question. It doesn't really relate to today's launch, but I want to answer it because it's a really important one that I know a lot of people are asking. We can still go to the moon in 3 days, or 4 or 5, with Artemis. One of the biggest things is we're wanting to, because this is the first time we're going in 50 years for Artemis 2, they're actually going to stay in Earth orbit for a day before they do a translunar injection to the moon. So that's going to extend that period by a day, and then they're going to just slingshot around the moon and come home, just to make sure we trust Orion carrying people, that we don't have any issues. But we can get there in about 3-4 days. For this mission, the Peregrine one, it was going to get there quite quickly. It's actually 93% of the way to the moon already, and we're only about 3-4 days into the mission. But it was actually going to come back around, and that was to give them more time with their vehicle and studying and prepare to be in the right place where they want to be to enter lunar orbit. To be able to do so. So there was reasons they picked. Now, some other vehicles that we followed, like X-Slim and some of those that are taking 30, 60, 90, 100 plus days to get to the lunar orbit and then lunar surface. It all depends on the launch vehicle. There's a lot of vehicles that are not massive, super heavy launch vehicles like Starship or SLS that can't launch it at the speed and quickness to be able to do that translunar injection and eject it out within 3-4 days to meet the moon. So what they have to do is more Earth orbits and slingshot, and every time they slingshot around Earth, they get to go further and closer to the moon, and then eventually they get grabbed by the moon's gravity. There are other ones that are actually going past the moon and then are going to fall back to get to the moon. All depends on launch availability, orbital mechanics, and a lot of stuff. But sometimes there's reasons. Sometimes it's just what works out because it's what's cost effective of getting a cheaper rocket than paying a more expensive rocket to launch something really tiny. So I agree. It's really interesting to follow along and see. Sometimes we can get there really fast, and other times it takes longer. We all just want to get back to the moon. I think we're all kind of catching that moon bug as we are really part of this new space race. John, the first stage will be lost. The first and second stage of this vehicle will be lost along with the 2 SRBs. It is not a reusable launch vehicle. Catching up on the chat here. A couple of people asking how the stream quality of the pixels. It is a little bit less quality than we are kind of normally used to. They don't invite as many people out to these launches, especially the reconnaissance ones, so there's not as many opportunities to get out there, as also there's a lot more limited. We are working to try to get our own TLP crew out there, so calling out for those that live in Japan, if you happen to be interested in broadcasting and want to be part of the TLP Rocket Chaser team and help us with our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, definitely get in contact with us via our email. We'd love to hear from you guys and try to work with some people on the ground to get our own cameras. Today's video feeds are coming in from NVS, so definitely check them out on their live feed on what they're able to do. We're thankful that they have this so that we are able to cover today's launch for it. Normally we would get also feeds from JAXA, but as this is not a JAXA launch, we do not have any of that, and because it's a National Reconnaissance Office mission, there is no official, well, a Japanese version of a National Reconnaissance Office mission. There is no official live view either, just like there is with the Space Force if they're launching something. Normally those live feeds in the US we're getting from the launch provider, not from the actual payload. Cray, when is the H-3 rocket coming along? That's a really great question. The H-3 is that next generation vehicle. It is an expendable vehicle. It had its first flight on March 7th of 2023. Unfortunately, that launch did end actually in failure for it and that was a failure during the second launch attempt. The first launch attempt of the H-3 actually was aborted just before SRB ignition because the mains were not at a point that they were super happy with. We haven't had a lot of updates on H-3. We are hoping that we will see it come back online for another second flight, but hopefully for a first flight that will be successful possibly this year. But that was back in March of 2023 we last saw it from this same launch facility. So we'll hopefully see that. It is also an expendable vehicle, but it is a larger expendable vehicle offering more opportunities to Japan. If you're just joining us, welcome here though. We are T-minus 26 minutes, 35 seconds, and counting till launch. Brian, speaking of spacecraft, I got a certification from the AIAA for the spacecraft course. That's awesome, Brian. That's so cool to hear. If you want, you can drop a picture of that in the Discord. That'd be awesome to see and connect with you hear more about that course. And Jay says, thanks for the answer. Absolutely. We're happy to answer those. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. And if you haven't yet, take a moment and engage that like button. It really does help us out. Catching up on everything you guys are saying here. Warnoco, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. JAXA announced on December 27th, my birthday, it had scheduled the second H3 as soon as February 14th, carrying a test payload and 2 small sats. That's awesome. I missed that announcement, so I appreciate you sending that in the chat. So we might see H3 sooner than even I thought. And of course, if we are able to bring you that live feed, we will do so as well. And Aravel, yeah, it's been 10 months already since that H3 anomaly flight. It was quite an interesting one, as you could actually see it tumbling on video. It was heartbreaking to see, but quite interesting to see with those tracking cameras. Rot says, will I be able to see this from Southern California? That you would not. It would be too high at that point and not under power for the to be able to see the actual flight there. As we are at T-minus 24 minutes, 50 seconds and counting, I'm going to take a quick commentary break, but stay with us right here on the launch pad as we continue to count down to launch of today's IGS-Optical 8 satellite, a Japanese reconnaissance optical satellite launching out of Japan. Stay with us and we'll continue our live countdown to launch coverage very shortly.
マイナス20分。 マイナス15分。
俺のあれだ、三脚ケース入れてる。もう動画もしてください。はい。
今のところ配信しておりますでしょうか。5分切っちゃったらもう調整はできないので、今が、はい、コメント見てますよ。はい。じゃあ、今回は A 社のモバイル回線、皆さんどうですか。でエンジンの足元だけを撮るカメラとかしたいんですけど、ニコンの B 線って10万超えるのにそんな良いようにジャンルがされないんですよ。H3 になっちゃうとロケットが柱の下にめり込む形になるので、ロケットのエンジンの転換の瞬間は見れないので、撮るんだったら今しかないんですよ。転換の瞬間だけのためにカメラを
竹崎総合司令塔より打ち上げ作業関係者に向けて打ち上げ準備状況の報告をいたします。 H-iIA ロケット48号機打ち上げ最終実施判断の結果は5です。現在各系ともロケット打ち上げの最終作業を実施中です。 また警戒区域の安全が確認されており、気象条件も打ち上げに支障のないことが確認されました。従いまして情報収集衛星光学8号機を搭載した H-iIA ロケット48号機の打ち上げを本日日本時間の午後1時44分26秒に実施します。打ち上げ8分前より打ち上げに向けた秒読みが開始されます。
はい、というわけで打ち上げ5です。今回、情報収衛星なんだな。合法ローンチって英語とか言ったもんね。
480打ち上げ8分前です。現在各系統もロケット打ち上げの最終作業を行っています。また警戒区域の安全は確認されています。460、59、58、57、56、55、54、53、52、51、450。440。430、29、28、27、26、25、24、23、22、21、420、19、18、17、16、15、準備完了。14、13、12、11、410、409、408、407、406、車上系準備完了。404、403、402、401、400。打ち上げ6分前です。現在、車上の天候は晴れ、気温摂氏16.2度、北西風毎秒7.9メートルです。H-iIA ロケット48号機の打ち上げに問題はありません。本日の打ち上げ予定時刻は日本時間午後1時44分26秒です。
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of IGS-Optical 8, launching from Japan, kicking off Japan's launch year with the first H-iIA launch rocket. As you can see, the countdown in the bottom left corner of the screen is counting you through the launch countdown milestones, now 20 seconds away from automatic sequence start. We're going to take our countdown down from just above me here, as that was an estimated, should be within about a minute, but we are right around L-4 minutes and counting. Give or take about 60 seconds for tonight's liftoff. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and if it's your first time here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth coverage here as part of the Launchpad network. Today's launch vehicle is built by Mitsubishi, carrying a satellite for Japan's national security and national civil emergency monitoring that they will be launching here today. T-minus 50 seconds away from final tank pressurization start as we continue through these final minutes of the count, right around that 3.5 to 4 minute mark. Some of the final milestones we're expecting to see are transfer to internal power, range, and weather verification. The water deluge system will activate about 75 seconds before liftoff, and the flight termination will be armed at T-minus 60 seconds. As we continue through the final minutes of the count, as always, let's see that go, no go in the YouTube chat. If you're a TLP member supporting our mission, you get access to those TLP custom emojis. If you want to become one, you can hit that join button down below. Now just 10 seconds away from tank pressurization as we continue through the final minutes of the count of the first launch from Japan, carrying for them in an instance, a national reconnaissance satellite for monitoring launching to low Earth orbit. You're seeing these fantastic views from between NVS Broadcasting and NBC South Japan Broadcasting. They're the ones who have that live views here this evening as we continue through final minutes of the count. You can see now 30 seconds away from verification that the first stage liquid hydrogen is ready for flight as we go through the final moments of the count. We're looking for that go, no go in the chat. And as we go through the final minutes here, we're going to turn it over and listen into the live sights and sounds of the broadcast. So stay with us right here on the Launchpad.
現在最終の準備が進められているところです。H-iIA 47号機は40 150 140 39 38 37 36 35 34 33 32 31 130 29 28、27、26、25、24、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、32、33、34、35、36、37、38、29、27、28、29、30、31、
2段液体酸素系準備完了。1段液体水素系、2段液体水素系準備完了。フレームリクエスター冷却最新到着結果打ち上げ1分前です。ウォーターカーテン散水開始。
20、19、18、17、16、
フライトモードオン。
14、13、
同様電池起
12、
動。
11、
全システム準備完了。
8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1、0、
エンジンスタート。
1、
SRBA 点火ストオフ。
4、5、6、7、
情報収集へ。打ち上げ後1分が経過しました。ロケットは順調に飛行を続けています。
7、80、81、82、83、84、85、86、87、88、89、90。
SRBA 燃焼終了。
110、11、12、13、14、15、
SRBA
16、17、18、19、120。
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view from Japan where the first stage of the H-iIA rocket is continuing to fire, continuing on the journey carrying today's payload, the IGS-Optical 8 satellite to orbit. As this is a reconnaissance satellite for Japan, we're not going to see much more than what we're seeing on your screen here. So that's really going to wrap us up for our live coverage of this. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button and subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. We hope that you will join us back here for our next live coverage. If you were expecting Starlink tonight, that has been delayed 24 hours due to weather at Vandenberg Space Force Station in California, or base in California. But we hope you'll join us for that here tomorrow. We're continuing to count down to more launches as we kick off a record-setting year, but Japan has successfully launched so far their H-iIA rocket carrying today's payload. We'll wait for more updates from Mitsubishi in Japan as they continue through the flight, but we don't expect to see anything more of these views than this. That's going to do it for me here from our TOP Canada studio. Join us over on the TOP Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between streams, and we're hanging out in live comms. We got Adzi and Joseph and Thunder hanging out, and we'd love to see you there for kind of a post-show, but that's going to do it from our TOP Canada studio. My name's Zach, and we'll see you next time, because space is better together. Good night.